Hello, hello, hello. I am Sheena White, one of the hosts of the Blue Collar Wealth Club.
And I am your other host, Jerry Garcia.
And so today we're going to talk about thinking small. So before we were talking about thinking big, right? 10x and going big. And so today we're going to talk about thinking small and really focusing on the little things that can create those big swings in momentum.
Absolutely. I think kind of clarify what you're talking about here a little bit, because I think it seems very counterintuitive based on the previous conversations we have. 10x your business, really think bigger, and now we're going back to talking about small.
Okay, so small meaning the small actions that really can make a difference. So, for instance, in that episode, we talked a lot about close ratio, right? So, we got into a conversation about focusing on that one metric. So, to me, that is something small, right? It's one tiny little thing in a mirror. Like, you can have some people I call it KPI crazy. So, KPI meaning key performance indicator. I once had a client who they were tracking so many things. I mean, it was like honestly asinine. And they were like, look at our KPI dashboard. I'm like, this is like the most epic spreadsheet I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah,
like,
if you're tracking too much, you're actually not helping.
I'm like, how do you even know? And they're like, we're doing this and that. I'm like, you don't, like, you're tracking so much. You have so much data that you're just in like overwhelm central, just looking at this thing. I don't even know where to start, So sometimes we need to really like take it down and to focus on the small things that will create that big momentum.
Well, it's exactly like you said. The close ratio on your sales is an easy one, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a very easy thing for your brain to handle. This is one thing that if we can change this, really makes a big difference in our business.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to market anymore. We don't have to adjust how much we're spending. We don't have to do more calls. If we can just tweak our language, tweak our messaging a bit, and take that from, closing 20% to closing 40%, now we've doubled the amount of conversions we have without doing any of the rest of the things.
Oh yeah. Like I had one client once where we actually just changed the order in which she was talking about things. She had a process and I was like, look, can we take this section here and move it here? And literally that change was the only thing we changed. It tripled her close ratio. It was
Incredible.
insane. I was like, I didn't even think it would work that well. I mean, I knew we needed to move it, but I didn't think it worked that well. It was awesome.
and that's when you're talking about these small wins that create huge momentum, that is a prime example. I mean, who would have think that just switching the order? But there's a lot. I mean, especially in sales, to the psychology of a sale, and capturing people, where they need to be captured, really.
Yeah. Well, you need to get them in what's called the buying pocket, psychologically, because humans buy, they are psychological, not logical. So humans literally 100% buy based upon the way that they're feeling. And so if you're kind of leading them there, so that's what happened. She was leading them there and then talking about something that needed to be talked about, but not at that moment. So it kind of like derailed them and tried to bring them back. And I was like, no, let's put that towards in the delivery and let's keep them in their feels for a lot longer. And it's worked.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's worked really well.
Such a small tweak that makes such a big difference. That's awesome.
Yeah, people buy in their feelings. So if you're like, oh, so that's why when you're like talking about like the megabits and all the things or whatever, like the features, nobody really cares. They all only care about the benefits.
Well, that's it, right? I mean, and we're much more into a sales conversation, but when you're talking to somebody about their purchase, they don't really care so much about the features. You will get the occasional person who's super technologically savvy, and that's what they want to know about. They want to know, realistically, the person buying just wants to know, can it do the thing I want it to do?
Mm-hmm.
Will this accomplish the goal I need it to accomplish? Regardless of if it's a service, if it's a product, they need to know that it's going to deliver the benefit that they are looking for.
Yeah.
Right? Even on when I'm selling mortgages, what is this? It's either going to save you money, or it's going to, it's going to help you eliminate debt, which is going to save you money, or it's going to allow you to purchase this. It's really simple when you break it down to the very basics of what message you're delivering to that person.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I think that does though, like lead into the whole, like thinking small in the sense of what are the tiny consistent actions we can take in order to create that momentum, right? So how can we how do we increase our close ratio? Is it that we follow up more? Is it that we change our process, the way we're delivering the sales message? Is it that we're targeting the wrong clients or getting the wrong leads? Because if you have 100 people in front of you that don't need or want your product, you're probably not going to close that many,
Right.
you know?
And it is breaking it down to the most basic blocks
Mhm.
of everything, right? Let's start with that. Like, who are we talking to? Like, what do we like to do? What do we like to do most? We like to deliver, we like to do this one thing. Okay, but your messaging is leading people to believe you like to build these big, extravagant, like, we really just like to do the run of the mill deck, right?
Mhm.
So your messaging needs to be catered to those people. Stop showing pictures of these extravagant decks when all you want to do is build the basic one.
Well, yeah, and you can have the picture of the extravagant deck, but also have the picture of the basic one,
Or you want
right?
to talk if those are the clients you want to
Mhm.
attract, you talk to, talk
Yeah.
about how quickly you get it done, how you get it done efficiently, how you get it done on budget, how you get it done, because the person buying the basic deck doesn't care about the rest of it.
Yeah, they just want you to come
And
in,
vice
get her done,
versa.
and leave, right?
If you want to only build the big extravagant decks, you don't talk about your price being the lowest. You don't talk about doing the fastest. You talk about building this beautiful patio that you're going to spend all this
Mhm.
time on, and all this, you know, your family's going to be out there enjoying the backyard now. The messaging is entirely different depending on
Yeah.
what you're trying to do, and the small things about that is to break it down to those individual pieces. Okay, well, what do we want to do? Let's make sure that our message conveys that, so that the right people are clicking on our ad, or the
Mhm.
right people are picking up the phone and calling us.
Yep, because then, that's a small thing, right? But it's super important because if you're getting a flow of the correct leads and then you're giving the sales pitch and process that converts them, then you'll have the sales that you want. So then you can pump more into that engine and do more. And so it feels like a lot, but if you're just focused on the little tiny things, focusing on the action and not the result. So, like, I always tell all my clients, like, focus on the action because sometimes you'll have ebbs and flows in your marketing, in your sales, and all of that stuff. But if you're always focused on those actions, like, focused on following up, focused on getting out there, getting your name out there, doing all the things you need to do, focus on giving great service and giving a great product. Because if you only have one client, if you make them feel like the greatest thing ever, then they're going to tell their friends, man, these people are amazing,
Yeah.
and then you'll get more leads and then you'll get more clients. So just really focused on doing the little things that will create that flywheel effect to where it just turns and turns and turns and keeps going.
Reminds me of a moment in The Office.
Okay.
Probably not to your surprise. But there's an episode where they're training some of the younger salesmen. So Dwight has taken Ryan out to a sales call, and Ryan comes out after they're done and they didn't make the sale, and he's like, I don't understand, we did everything right. And he's like, sometimes you just fail, sometimes you didn't do anything wrong, basically. And that's just it. Well, you're focusing not on the result, but on, but if you keep doing the same things over and over, sometimes you're gonna have terrible weeks where you just feel like it wasn't there.
Hmm.
Something, those conversions didn't happen. But you can do the same exact thing the next week and it feels like you're hitting every single one.
Yeah.
It's baseball players are another great example. They get in these hitting slumps where they can't hit for like 17 games in a row. They really aren't getting a hit. But then they'll go on these long streaks where they have a 17-game hitting streak, and they're doing the same things over and over and over again. You can't get too much in your head about the results that you're looking for while not focusing on the actions you need to be doing.
Yeah, because so many times they'll get in that slump and then they'll say to themselves, oh, nobody wants to buy from me. And then they have this like energy of poo, and then nobody will want to buy from them. So you just need to be like, you know what? You need to pump yourself up. Be like, yeah, I'm amazing. I can do this. Let's go.
Yeah, athletes are a prime example of it. You see these guys out there shooting. They practice shooting the same shots over and over, practicing the basics, practicing the basic, hockey players practice their skating. I don't remember who brought it up, but somebody in our hockey lives brought up the fact that Cale Makar practices his basic skating steps every single time he's on the ice. And Cale Makar is one of the greatest young defensemen in the NHL.
Oh yeah, he's destined for the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and it's because these guys focus on the same thing. I don't know if you've ever watched an NBA player if they don't have anybody in their face and they're just sitting there shooting, the guys don't miss. And you really get to see how they got to that level by just practicing the same. It's always what frustrated me about Shaq and his free throw shooting, because he obviously didn't practice it. He was awful.
Yeah, right? So, I mean, what could you do if you were, if you are, making sure that you're practicing, like, not necessarily practicing, but you're doing those little tiny things, right? I can't remember who it was, but there was a college basketball coach that the first day of practice, he taught them how to tie their shoes. And he insisted upon it, and he was like one of the greatest. So
Sounds like a Krzyzewski thing.
Probably. I don't remember. I read it in a book, and I don't remember his name, and I don't remember the book. But anyways, he talked about literally going back to the basics, like, and the newbie kids were like, "What the world? Like, what is going on here?" And then the older, like the juniors and seniors were like, "No, this is what we do. You have to learn how to tie your shoes." And they were like, "What? I already know how to tie my friggin' shoes." But his point was that, in basketball, your socks and your feet and your shoes being on just right is the most important thing. Because if you start to get a blister or you start to rub or anything like that in the middle of a game, that's going to severely affect your game. So his point was, if you don't know how to 100% tie your shoes perfectly, you're going to end up screwing yourself and your team because you didn't focus on that little thing. And so it might seem dumb to go all the way to tying your shoes, but that is one of the things that made them the best, because they started from literally the foundation. How do we tie our shoes? Then how do we shoot a free throw? Like Steph Curry, the reason that he is phenomenal at free throw shooting is because he does it all day, every day. He practices his shot every single day without fail.
Tiger Woods. I think Tiger Woods would hit something like 100 shots with every single club in his bag every time he went out to the driving range.
Yeah.
Like, it's these little things add up, and it's really easy to overlook and say, well, I already know how to do that. I don't even have to think about it anymore. But sometimes that's what you're creating. And by continuing to focus on those little things over time add up to very big things in how you run your business, how you train others to run your business for you.
Yeah, because if you're not focused on the little things too, then it becomes harder to train those little things because they become so,
second nature.
Second nature to you, but it's not necessarily second nature to someone else.
And that is actually one of the bigger differences I've noticed when I'm getting training from somebody, when I'm asking questions. And they're like, well, that's just how it is. That's just how it is. And, the way my brain works, there's a reason why that's the way it is. I need to understand why, so I understand what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, and revisiting those little things sometimes will actually allow you to find better, more efficient ways to do things as well. But I can think in particular of somebody I worked with in the mortgage field who, I'm like, how do I get to this number? He's like, well, that's the number. That's what it is. And there's a very specific reason why, you need to remember those little things so that you can teach the others who don't know anything about the topic you're covering to do it the right way.
Yeah, because if you just tell someone that is the way it is, then you end up with an organization that's full of, well, this is just the way we do it. And a lot of times there's a ton of inefficiencies in that. So if you're teaching people the why and, we do this because of this, they might have a better way of doing it that is more efficient, that makes you more money, all these different things. Because if people are just doing things because that's the way they're done, that doesn't breed any creativity or, any ingenuity. And so there's a lot of things you can get by really like looking at those tiny little things and making sure that everyone understands the entirety of the process.
There was an experiment with monkeys I read in a book once, and they put these 4 monkeys in this room, and they put this banana at the top of this ladder. And, as soon as one of the monkeys would go up to try and climb up, they would spray it with a hose. And so the other monkeys would get all mad. And so they would take one of the monkeys and replace it with another one. And that monkey would go up to try to get and the other ones would, no, stop. And they would stop it. And one by one, they replaced all the monkeys to the point where none of the 4 monkeys had ever experienced this, but the second anybody tried to go get that banana, they would stop the other ones. And that becomes just a system of, well, this is how it's always been done, without having the why behind it. So that why, even though it's a small thing, is actually very important for making sure that you're doing things for the right reasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And you're not just perpetuating what is, potentially not the truth anymore. It's like the
Right?
same
Things
thing
change.
with the baby elephant and the tiny rope. You have a baby elephant, you tie it to a stake that eventually the elephant gets big, but it doesn't think that it can pull the rope, so it doesn't.
Right.
It just never does. And you don't want
It's
that
not
in
like
your
it's physically holding it there anymore.
Yeah,
It
no,
just
not at
learned.
all. It's just has it's yeah, it just it because from from the get it was taught that it can't, so it just doesn't. And so you don't want that in your organization, right? Because those sorts of things will end up stymieing your growth, and they will make it so that you can't, get away.
I mean, things change, things advance. I mean, you may be doing something for one way for a very long time, and it's those companies who didn't adapt to that technology. When Blockbuster was making fun of Netflix and thinking that they were silly for the way they were doing business. One of them just live streamed the NFL this last weekend,
Yep.
and the other one has been defunct for 20 years now or whatever it is.
He who laughs laughs longest, I guess.
Exactly. So
But yeah.
revisiting these things sometimes is
Mhm.
also important. And when you're training that why can sometimes lead you to be, oh, well, did you know that this exists now? Or we can just,
Mhm.
we can set this up so that it does it automatically,
Yeah.
or so that it's, super easy now. There's a lot of things that change, and young people coming into your organization may actually help you find some of these things that you didn't know existed.
Mhm. Yeah. So really looking at, and in the book Great by Choice, they talk about zooming in and zooming out. And so that's kind of, what we were talking about before, like zooming out, like how do you see the bigger picture? Where are you going? Like creating that 10x vision. And then now it's like zooming in. What are these tiny little things to create that flywheel so that you can actually achieve that 10x vision?
Absolutely. So keep focusing on the little things, keep focusing on why you do these little things,
Mm-hmm.
and keep teaching these little things so that everyone understands things from a step-by-step perspective, and you can find some real nuances within your business to help that growth.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, thanks so much for joining us on this episode of the Blue Collar Wealth Club, and we'll catch you next time.